because he celebrated his 50th birthday. Oh, you guys hear me?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, it's the recording in progress came up. Okay, so happy birthday to Chubbs, and then to Louis. Anytime community needs something, he's willing and able when it comes to dine and donates, and he's done it so many times now. I think everybody knows to call him because he does a great job at that. So congrats. I also do want to recognize the police and EMS, of course, for everything they do to keep us safe. So thank you for everything there. And to our clerks, same thing. Thank you. You take on a lot, and we greatly appreciate all the work that you do. In terms of some updates, I just want to mention, this weekend we have a few different activities taking place. We have our Friday night concert on May 24th at 6 p.m. in Wilmore Road Park. We're excited about this. We have 2 local bands playing, as well as about 20 or so vendors and a couple food trucks that will be there selling some products or handing out some information, as well as some food and other desserts. So if you're not doing anything on Friday night, please stop by. The concert starts at 6 p.m. And then the next day, on May 25th, we are going to hold our annual Memorial Day Parade in conjunction with the American Legion Post 108. The parade starts at 10. Hoping to finalize all the details this week with the participants, as well as just coordinating with the police department, DPW, and others to make sure that we are all set. For anyone that is participating, an email will go out with the details. We will have signs at each street with the location. We'll also have some volunteers to help coordinate. We're hoping that everybody can arrive no later than 9:40 at your location, because we do want to start at 10 a.m. And just once these parade does end, just make sure everybody sticks around for the Memorial Day services that will take place, led by the American Legion, as we remember those men and women that gave the ultimate sacrifice. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Vanchery, and please do take good care of yourself. I know there's a big weekend coming up and there's a lot of work ahead of you, so take good care of yourself. I have to ask, I wasn't going to ask. I understand Bella Note that where that name came from, but for the life of me, Chubsy Wubsy, you got to tell me, did that name come from the Rascals or what? I'm sorry, can you come up to the microphone? And for the record, you just have to state your name. You don't need to state your address.
Chubsy Wubsy?
Your real name.
For Negron.
Thank you.
So one day I have a man cave with a lot of toys that I collected since I was young, and I owned a bar before Chubsy Wubsy. So my brother, we used to hang out downstairs, play cards, drink a little sangria, and he said, "You're like a little." We was watching Little Rascals. He was like, "You're like a Norman. You're like a Upsy Wubsy," and then he was like, "We should call you Chubsy Wubsy." My brother passed away. I sold the bar. And I thought about it. I said, you know what? I'm going to try it out. So I named Chubsy Wubsy, and I became Chubsy Wubsy, and the best thing I ever did.
Thank you for your story.
Thank you so much.
We have 5 new banners that are going to be going up, Hometown Hero program. Patsy Epicino, he's the 128th Army Air Forces. William Timones, U.S. Navy Aviation Fire Control Technician, 2nd class. We have Corporal Walter Needy Mirowski, World War II U.S. Army Air Corps. Jack Marcus, Vietnam veteran, U.S. Navy Aviation Machinist Mate, engine mechanic, 3rd class. And our first female hometown hero, Private Caitlin Calley, U.S. Army medic. It's interesting when I read these names and I look up the individuals that we often think that those veterans are always on the front line. But there's many veterans who work fixing the engines, doing food, and other things to make sure that the country stays safe. So I'm really happy that we're going to have 5 new Hometown Hero banners going up. And also, I'm really excited we have a new program for those Hometown Hero banners. You're going to be able to look them up on Google Maps. You can explore our Hometown Heroes feature with an interactive Google map showcasing the precise locations of the loved one banners. This map not only pinpoints the exact spot where each Hometown Heroes banner is displayed, but it also offers a brief biography detailing their service, as well as a picture of the actual banner that is displayed on Main Street in Little Falls. Upon selecting the name of the veteran from the list of the local Falls, Little Falls heroes, users will be directed to a specific location of their hero's banner on the map. And the map provides a navigation instruction guiding the families directly to the street pole where the banner is. I was using this today, and it's quite accurate. I want to thank Tyler from the rec department who put this together. And it gives you voice directions right to the banner. So it's I'm really happy. We're only 1 or 2 towns that have this. And as I mentioned before, our goal is also to have a voice biography of each veteran so that you can link in and hear that. So 31st is our spring fling. We have over right now 65 seniors attending. It's going to be John Morano and the Accents playing. Look forward to a really good time of food and dancing. I want to comment on we took a look, Councilwoman Hablitz and myself went up and down Mozart and Cherry Street, seeing that new pavement and asking the residents if they want trees in front of their houses. There was one resident that does, Mayor. Most residents did not want trees in front of their homes. The shade tree is requesting that we put cherry trees on Cherry Street and Mozart at that intersection. So maybe we can entertain and see if we could get cherry trees. I know the engineering wanted dogwood trees, but maybe we could swap them out and put cherry trees on Mozart and Cherry Street. We'll move on. Does the attorney have anything to report this evening?
No, Council President.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to open the meeting to the public? This is for agenda items.
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Hablitz, second by Councilman Murphy. This is a voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Madam Clerk?
Anyone wishing to address the Township Council may do so through the Council President. It is preferred if you give your name and address for the record. Comments are to be limited to 3 minutes. However, if appropriate, you may be granted additional time in the sole discretion of the Council President. Members of the public who have joined the meeting virtually and desire to provide comment shall raise their virtual hand in the Zoom application. The meeting moderator will cue the members of the public that wish to provide comment, and the Council President will recognize them in order. Members of the public who have joined the meeting by calling in must press *6 to mute and unmute themselves and *9 to raise their hand. Members of the public who have joined the meeting via the Zoom application must click the reactions icon and then the raise hand icon. Once the process is complete, we will return to the regular order of business.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The floor is now open. You could come up to the podium or speak by Zoom. Yes, it is. If it's agenda items, you could speak, sir.
Okay.
You could just state your name, not your address.
My name is Sean May. And,
Mr. May, can you just make sure we hear you by the mic? If you talk, yes, thank you.
my name is Sean May, and I just had a quick question on the zoning ordinance 1493 that's coming up. I just would like a clarification where it says shall not be performed between the hours of 6 p.m. and 7 a.m. on weekends or weekdays, or between the hours of 6 p.m. and 9 a.m. on Saturdays and federal holidays, unless such activities can meet with the limits set forth in tables 1 and 2. All motorized equipment used in construction and demolition activities shall be operated with muffler at all other times. The limits set forth in tables 1 and 2 do not apply to construction and demolition activities. Also, had a question on Sunday work is prohibited except for the general repair or maintenance of property by owner. Question is for that particular piece is should be a time limit not before like 9 a.m. on a Sunday.
You're talking about the emergency work if a homeowner has to do on Sunday?
Yeah, well, it says it's just for general repair.
Right.
It shouldn't be before 9 a.m. I mean, there's no, why would you be cutting grass, like leaf blowers earlier than 8 o'clock or something like that?
Yeah.
I mean, right here, there's no limitations, so.
Right. I think the intent of this, and Mayor, correct me if I'm wrong, the intent of this on Sunday was for like emergency work and, to tie governments.
And that's fine. So
Yeah.
emergency work is fine. It's just like general lawn maintenance of something, or he's banging around at 9 o'clock before 9 o'clock in the morning. There's no restriction on the residential side. It's 9 a.m. So I didn't see why there shouldn't be one for business side.
So you're looking for this governing body to enact a start time of 9 a.m. on Sunday work?
For maintenance and stuff.
Mr. Crucci, do you have a comment on that?
believe the ordinance doesn't allow Sunday work
Right.
for a commercial zone.
Are you're talking about regular residents, like,
No, no,
Residential zone allows.
Sunday work is prohibited except for general repair or maintenance on the property. So there is work allowed.
but that's not for commercial property, am I correct? Mr. May,
That's a commercial zone.
That's
Yeah.
a commercial zone.
Yeah.
Yeah, unless there's a repair that needs to be.
so what you're saying in the commercial zone, if there was an emergency repair, they'd be able to do it. That's what we're saying.
Rather than wait.
Fine, but this says general maintenance, which is a difference. There is a difference.
Mayor, you
I
have a
don't wanna-
comment?
I don't want to split hairs, but I've been living with this for almost 2 years now.
Okay, no, we're here to address
Yeah.
it. There's not splitting hairs. We're here to address it. Mayor, you have a comment to this?
I do. I want to look at the specific language of it. And what I may recommend now is that we table the adoption of it this evening to ensure that every bit of the minutia, which is important in this ordinance, is adequately addressed. And I don't want to prolong the adoption of this, but I also don't want the adoption to be incorrect. So if that means waiting another, couple of weeks to pass it, that may be what needs to occur, but you're correct. I don't want there to be any discrepancy or disparity in what the language reads.
If you want, I don't want to hold the rest of the meeting, but
No,
I
you
just
can
get
do- we-
clarification of the other section before that. What's the intent there?
What do you mean,
Section in
Mr. May?
particular?
Unless such activities can meet the limits of the set forth in tables 1 and 2, and then all motorized equipment used in construction demolition activities shall be operated with muffler. Limits set forth in table 1 and 2 do not apply to construction. I'm not sure what you mean, or what's the intent there.
Mr. Kusia, you want to comment on that, please?
The use of the tables has to do with the decibels.
Right.
So if you're under the decibels,
But they're saying construction does not comply with that.
right,
doesn't have-
that's the vehicle portion that doesn't comply. It has to have a muffler on.
It seems like it's for any noise.
I don't believe it says that. I think
Yeah.
it says for motor vehicles.
It's not clear.
Okay, Mr. May, we'll probably end up tabling this to make sure we have great, that we get the language straightened out. But let me tell you this,
2 years.
well, that's
I-
fine. I get it.
Right, because there's another building that's gonna go up eventually, and I don't want to have to go through this again.
Yep. The intent of the governing body is to, for Sunday, it was more or less emergency work and not just common work.
I'm cool with
Yeah,
emergencies only.
Right.
only.
you know,
Well, Council President, it's also the intent that a homeowner who's looking to mow his grass on Sunday is also able to do that.
And that's fine.
Or make general repairs around their home. And of course, right, and I do believe that as I am looking at it, we can have some additional clarification added to the ordinance.
Perfect.
And absolutely, again, I think tabling at this meeting, I'm not certain if council will advise us that the modifications are substantial enough that we need to reintroduce and then subsequently adopt. If they are considered minor changes, we may be able to just move straight to an adoption. But absolutely, I don't disagree with you. And I'd be happy to touch base with you this week about the very specific concerns
Sure.
and make sure that they are addressed.
I appreciate that.
does council have any comments regarding this noise ordinance from the resident? Counselor?
I've made notes on this. I'm going to have to talk to my colleagues and figure out a way, probably clarify. Language clarification will probably be the way.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Any comments from the dais?
Just
Yeah, Councilman Murphy?
So if we do table this today, this just gets pushed off to our following meeting for
Yes.
approval?
We'd
Okay.
hope. We'll see. Yep.
Right, unless the changes are so substantial
That
that
we have to
require
start
a
all
new
over.
To
introduction,
reintroduce it to then adopt
Potentially.
after?
potentially.
Right.
Okay.
Depends how much the changes have to be.
Okay.
But we'll get it right.
One other one for the other, the ordinance for the
I'm sorry, can you bring that mic a little bit closer so we could hear you? Like, thank
the
you.
ordinance for the pedestrian walkway that's coming up.
Yes.
I saw there was some notations, I think it was on a photo for about 180 feet. And where does the 180 feet start?
Are you talking from Stephen Avenue?
Even from Stevens to down Warren towards center,
Right. It's
because it affects my driveway.
right.
That's
You-
correct. It will not affect
will
the
not.
driveway. 180
I
feet,
taped it off 180 feet is a little bit past my property line. So
No, you will not be by your driveway.
yeah, I can assure you that it ultimately will not interfere with the entrance to your driveway whatsoever.
Okay.
It will be, your property line will be very close to where the plaza would theoretically start. But it would certainly not impede you having access to your driveway whatsoever.
Yeah, it'd be great. Yeah, as long as I can get back out of the driveway and make, sweep it,
You'll be-
that'd be worthwhile.
You'll be fine.
Absolutely.
All right, perfect.
Do you have any objections to the pedestrian wall?
Other than the only thing I do have a question on is the ADA parking and how that's gonna relate and
I'm sorry, the what parking?
ADA
Okay.
parking, where that's gonna be moved from in front of the library to, I'm not sure where it's going. I do have concerns of if it's going to Stevens, having a handicapped or an elderly person open the door on Stevens is probably not the smartest thing.
Mhm.
Sure. So I can comment on that if it's okay, Council President.
Mayor,
I've had some conversations with the library, and what the discussions have been is potential, there was one ADA spot in front of the library, not too long ago. Recently, this council, increased that to two, spots that begin, the council needs to approve it because they all need to be marked with a sign and striped, in blue. And I understand that right in front of the library is where those two current spaces are on Warren Street. There is a bunch of discussion about potentially even increasing the number of spaces because they are heavily used to a total of 3 to 4 spaces, with 2 of them moving to what is now the back corner of the Civic Center, the back corner of the municipal building lot, which would be closest to the library itself. There's also a space directly across from that, and on the space closest to the front of the Civic Center itself. There's also some discussion about adding some on Stevens Ave. I know you said, it might not be smart to have somebody open a door onto Stevens Ave. We have in most municipalities on main roads, ADA parking spaces. Main Street has one between Center and Stevens, on the northern side. There's one on the southern side between Stevens and Patterson Ave in front of PNC Bank. So it's not uncommon to have ADA spaces. And in fact, the space that would be on Stevens Ave, while as part of the streetscape that is going to be coming past Stevens Ave, or I should say coming up Stevens Ave, there is going to be a ramp installed where there's currently 2 or I think maybe 3 steps leading to the library from Stevens Ave. It's going to be graded so that there's a ramp heading up that direction as well, so that anybody in a wheelchair could also access it that way, which would actually be a closer access than the current one on Warren Street. So it is certainly not something that we have not thought of. There has been a bunch of discussion about it. And again, the total number of spaces is a little bit in the air, but and the net effect on total parking is also minimal because Stevens Ave will actually gain a handful of parking spaces because of where the new crosswalks will be for children crossing the street there. And where the current bus stop is and all of that. So the net effect of parking spaces may be a loss of 1 or 2 overall in total. But we're going to restripe the former municipal building lot to increase the number of parking spaces pretty
It's a
dramatically.
concern I had since I lived there. I see how
Absolutely.
much they have, people actually use these spots and sometimes they have trouble and stuff. So you help them along.
Access will actually be easier.
That's great.
Now, again, somebody with a cane, it may be a little bit more difficult if they're parking in the municipal building lot, but somebody in a wheelchair access would be easier because it would provide a level surface straight across to get in rather than have to deal with dropped curbs or the lack thereof currently.
Okay, great. And then the final question I have on this pedestrian walkway is to finish, what the final design is going to be and the finishes it will have. You says that it's going to be totally up to mayor's office. It's like having
So-
seen some, no offense, but some decisions on finishes of buildings and what townships have approved, I'm kind of concerned.
So unfortunately, there's little that a municipality can do to dictate finishes on buildings or colors of buildings. But fortunately, there will be say on what this final project looks like. And some thoughts are a similar stamped pattern to that we have in front of the rec center currently. The building itself, it is a sort of it's a stamped paver look, but we're going to try to save that one huge tree that is in front of or I should say to the right of the current former municipal building in that grass area. And again, it will be sort of a concrete with smaller trees throughout in order to keep somewhat of a green feel. In fact, we'll be adding a lot of greenery because there's currently no trees in the middle of the street, which we'd ultimately have some trees in the middle of the street. I guess a very good example of what it may ultimately look like on a much smaller scale is in the middle of our municipal building parking lot, the area that has the benches and the flag on it currently, with the stamped concrete there. The colors may differ from that because it should probably match our streetscape a little bit more. But that's sort of the thought right now.
Great, thank you very much.
Mayor, you might as well entertain at this time how this process with the streetscapes and what the governing body is looking to get the grant to do this.
Yeah, so great news is right now, we currently have a large grant to bring the streetscape from Main Street all the way up to Walnut, which will bring us right past the current library and the area of Warren Street that is currently in discussion. There may be a period of time where that area is not a plaza per se, but more of a closed down street until there's additional funding to make the improvement to an actual plaza. But what that will do is it'll encourage and foster sort of an area for meetings and various town activities and things, which will be located right between our library, former municipal building, and our civic center, giving a lot of walkability and interconnectivity to those three buildings that are all located in one little area. So it's something that I look forward to. I'm hoping that big future events can be hosted there and we could have a lot of town activities in that area.
The floor is open. Councilman Vanchery, you have anything you want to add at this point?
No, I don't.
Thank you. The floor is.
Good evening, John Vettery, 110 Ridge Avenue, Little Falls. Nice seeing everyone. For the record, Mr. Vanchery does sound a little bit like Darth Vader, so it's appropriate.
Thank you, Mr. Vettery.
I mean that in the nicest way possible, but, and congratulations, Cynthia, always service with a smile. So, nice from the very beginning when she came here. So want to speak in favor of this pedestrian plaza. We took a look back at our records in the Historic Society. Looks like this goes back almost 70 years in the master plan. So I applaud this group for finally taking the initiative to look at it and do it. It's a real conflict seeing the cars coming out of there and what's happening on Stanley Street and trying to eliminate the curb cuts, from a public safety standpoint, I just think is amazing. And I really thank you for that. From the function of economic revitalization of the town and what's happening with the old town hall and Ethan and the Bean and the Morris Canal Visitor Center, such a perfect dovetail into having events there. And, we'd love to have a seat at the table to discuss, the particulars of it and how that would work. Happy to hear that the tree will be saved and to create some much needed green space in that area. But I think that is really great and I applaud your efforts. Thank you.
Mr. Vedder, you mentioned conflict to the cars. You want to talk about that? What do you mean?
We probably all witnessed this and I see it spending a lot of time being at Old Town Hall and it just, when law enforcement is not there and the kids are still there trying to cross and the cars are coming out, sometimes they barely stop. So there's just, you see, a lot of near misses. It will be very nice to eliminate the curb cuts. I'd love to see every curb cut on Stevens as you're doing this, new pedestrian area from Main Street to Walnut. I think we're only left with maybe one or two curb cuts, but having that gone and having a way for the kids to cross, maybe even with a beacon or something flashing there, to be looked at. You can look at what they did on South Park Street in Montclair. They created a really nice pedestrian. They still have a street there, but they have a very nice pedestrian area. So I think, eliminating the conflicts of those cars, making a left or right there is going to be huge. And it's a great, first and foremost, beautification's great, but public safety is the most important.
Thank you. Mr. Kusia, there's someone that would like to speak. Okay. Ms. Goldstein, can you hear us?
Yes,
Okay, the floor is yours.
thank you. This is Sarah Goldstein. I live at 260 Main Street in Little Falls. I had some questions about, again, this Warren Street closing off part of it. Where will there be parking when you want to use the library?
So the parking for the library will be in the parking lot of the old police station and also at the Civic Center.
Okay, so that area going to the parking lot is not what you're closing off. I thought that's between Stevens and going in that direction.
You'll still be able to access the parking lot where the old police station is to park.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for joining us this evening. Is it, Mr. Kusia, is there a reason why our speaker's not, why we? Okay. The floor is still open for those that are attending. Please come up. You're welcome to come up, madam.
Janet Cooper, 47 Oak Crescent. I'm talking about the pedestrian plaza that is being proposed. First question, forgive me for my ignorance and I'm not up to speed. Has this already been approved? Is this already something that's going forward, or is this just in the planning stages at the moment? I guess I need clarification on that.
Ms. Cooper, this evening before the council body is to put the wheels in motions, so to say, to see if we would get funding and to look at the designs. And if we don't get funding and if the governing body doesn't like the designs, then nothing's going to happen.
Okay. The concerns that I have, I guess, are we don't even have anyone renting these units that are being built currently. We don't even know what what's going to happen with the traffic, what's going to happen with, the flow. We're then taking away Warren Street, which is non-residential except for one home that is currently there. And we're going to take all that traffic flow and put it onto Walnut Street, which Walnut residents have already complained about all the cut through for their street because they're trying to avoid the Main Street fiasco. Wouldn't this cause a problem getting rid of an egress, like especially when the parking garage for this new building that's being built, when people need to get to the light, they're going to have to go up, they're going to have to go across, they're going to go when kids are going to school back and forth. That at least with Warren Street open, it's a cut through that they can get to the light to make the left if they have to make the light. That was one of my concerns. The second one of my big concerns would be clearly handicap parking. Stevens Avenue is a dangerous avenue. The cars, they don't observe the speed limit, let's face it. And you have an older woman getting out and opening a door, and she's elderly and she can get out and she's already got her little bag of books and she's trying to get, whether you ramp, whatever, unless you've got a good plan for that, I don't think that it's really a feasible solution. Also, my son utilizes a power chair and he uses a handicap van with a ramp that has to deploy. And for the safety of him, I don't know how safe that is for him to be deployed on Stevens Avenue if he wants to use the library. So I went into the library today because I even did a walk all the way around the block to see what the viability would be for something like that and asked the library staff, is there a side entrance over here? Is there a reason why they're considering putting it on Stevens? And they look completely flummoxed and actually asked me to attend the meeting tonight because of some of their concerns as well. Because a lot of the people that come there, especially moms even, with the story time, they've got little kids in tow. Do you really want them like having to walk even farther in inclement weather? The elements and such, I remember taking Josh to story time and having to carry him. If I have to go all the way across and carry the kid even further, I mean, whether it's bucolic and beautiful or not, which I'm not saying no completely, but I really think we need to think about this a little bit longer and also see what the impact is going to be when you do open that. And also, what about the corner of Stevens and Main right now? It's green, it's beautiful. Why not put something there instead? I just don't know if this is really has been thought out well enough. I'm not saying I'm kiboshing the idea because I am 100% for the more green space we can get, the better for this township. We need it, absolutely. But right there, I don't think is the best place for it to be. And I'm kind of questioning why we would be doing it anyway. If we have a farmer's market that's very successful at the police station and right here in this parking lot, I'm not exactly sure why we need to do it. And if we do have events that are of that magnitude or that size, we generally close off Stevens Ave. We have the July 4th celebration here and everything works out well. So I'm kind of confused as to the area that we're discussing to potentially put this. So they're my concerns if somebody wants to address.
Thank you. You could stay at the podium if you want. Yep, yeah, you can. So is it this way?
No.
To answer your last question about the corner of Main Street and Stevens, that is privately owned property. It's not owned by the township. So that's,
Those houses that you guys took to, took down so you can put parking like by the school,
correct.
they were privately owned as well, right?
That's correct, but the township bought them. I don't think it's
And why
going to,
can't we
I-
buy the property that's there on the
well,
corner?
the township
it
could
would
probably
really
make an
do-
offer if we,
We could
yeah.
even increase the turning lane
Right.
there instead of these semis, like taking like everything off at that corner.
The township could buy the property if it was feasible and if the governing body wanted to spend those monies, but that would probably be, Ms. Cooper, a very expensive proposition on this governing body to buy that corner lot.
Well, what about that abandoned property that's over by Schumacher's that hasn't been developed in years? What about maybe making that a beautiful like township kind of like green space as well? Is that a potential or is that a possibility?
That is also privately owned, and to buy that from the owners that own that now, that would be a very financial big lift on this township to buy that property on Main Street. So
Can I ask a question? I know maybe I'm off paper and I'm off like, what I'm supposed to be. Is there anything on the law or in the books that basically when a developer buys a property in town, not a residential, I'm talking a building like for business development, why is there nothing in town that basically tells them, okay, if you don't develop this within 3 years, because the first thing they do is they knock down the building because the taxes are far cheaper on a vacant piece of property as opposed to a rateable that they take down immediately. We've had in Little Falls to live with cyclone fences and ugly things all over town. In fact, you can't even walk on Main Street right now. I don't know what's taking so long to get the sidewalks done. I can't even take my son to like breakfast over at the diner because can't get there. At what point in time do we kind of look at these developers and go, hey, you're in default. You need to, I know that when I was working for a doctor's office that caught fire, he had 3 years to get that building back and running or else he was going to be fined. Why don't we have something like that for developers that buy these, raise the stinking property and make it look horrible and we have to live with it? That's not like an aesthetically pleasing look. So why can't we, is there something right now in the books that deals with those type of issues? I'm just wondering, forgive my ignorance.
that's fine. They're wonderful questions. I do want to circle back to your concerns that you first came this evening to, and we'll address these concerns. They're very important about the ADA parking. That's important. Yeah, I mean, if this governing body goes through and makes this pedestrian plaza, you won't be able to park in front of the library. That would be out of the
I
question.
have a 90-year-old
Right.
friend of mine that lives up the street from me, who specifically asked me to be here. She was a little too tired to come tonight to ask these questions for her, because she is one of those ones that brings her little bag of books to the library. And it's so much easier. For her to get out of her car, she's got guaranteed parking and she goes right through the front. It just makes it
Does it-
easier.
Mayor, you want to comment? Hold on, Mayor, a second, please. Councilman Murphy?
Right, real quick. Is it possible to see if the engineer could potentially put a design or layout of what this may look like so that residents could be able to see,
That would be.
hey, here's
great.
where the spots may be, it doesn't, I think conceptually everyone's for green space in that area, being a little beautified. But is it potential that we could maybe next meeting, see if our engineer could put something together so that we could all take a look at it and residents can see it and say, hey, here's where the parking spaces may be. This way everyone can have an idea of, where they may go and their feelings on it.
Well, I see no issues in having our engineer put together a plan that would show where the ADA is and give an overall schematic of a plan. It may not be the plan that the governing body would put a stamp of approval on, but it would be something to go off of.
These grants that you guys are trying to get, is there a time of time frame? Because I feel like we're moving a little too fast before we see what the impact of this building is going to have and all the new residents and such, and what the traffic's going to be like. And I don't think a traffic study done in the middle of summer before it's even filled is going to be something that's going to be even helpful. So I don't even know what the anticipated opening date is for these new apartments or whatever they're building. It looks like they're almost close to, completion, but why don't we kind of like put the brakes on until we really see what the impact of all of this extra construction is going to do to especially that area of town, which is already really congested. It's the lifeline of our entire town, and we don't even know what it's going to be like when all of this is done and finished. So maybe kind of like put the brakes on, because what if there's an accident on Main Street? What do? They usually detour and divert traffic down Warren. Not, and now it'll go down Walnut. And then they have to make a left when kids are crossing the street, because that's the main intersection where most of the kids go across the street, because the visual is a little clearer there than it is on Warren. But then you're going to take that away. I'm trying to figure out the mind thought. I'm trying to look at it from different angles, and I'm not against, like I said, green space. I'm a huge proponent, but I just don't know if this is the right place for it to be.
The timeframe to address that question, this is a grant, so we would try to put that in motion in June and see if we would get the grant. And if this was to go through, we'd probably try to complete this project in 2025. But Mayor, you will have comment?
Yeah, Councilman, I think, Ms. Cooper, a lot of what you said actually affirms the increased safety and security, especially the students in this area. And the reason being, Warren Street is frankly dangerous with all of the kids that are crossing the street in that area. We have an extra street by our school. It's an extra place for students to cross, not only across Stevens Ave, but then also across Warren Street, which adds an additional element of trying to cross kids safely in that area. We are eliminating one of the crosswalks that could potentially be dangerous by eliminating Warren Street altogether if this were to pass. And as far as your concerns, there's no vehicles aside from one home that has access on Warren Street. There's no access to the new development on Warren Street.
No,
All of the access is from
if they
Center
come
Ave.
out of Center
To-
Street and they have
yes,
to get to the
to your
light,
point.
make the left.
Well, the left turn could be made right off of Center Ave as they are now.
We
And
all know that
to your
during rush
point-
hour, it's almost impossible to make a left from Center
well,
Street.
there's
onto
now a
Main
don't
Street.
block the box that has been added. And to your point, cars have not been stacking or queuing in that intersection.
Because we
and-
haven't opened up the new building.
Well, again, to that point, there was 50, the same comment was made several years ago when 50 units that were approved 15 years ago at the Abbey were actually built. And everybody said the intersection of Center and Main Street is going to be a disaster. There's 52 and 3-bedroom units, 25 3-bedroom units at the Abbey. There has been no visibly increased traffic at the intersection of Main Street and Center Ave. And since the don't block the box has been painted, traffic has been flowing extremely well there because there is a red light just a couple of, 100 yards away at Main and Stevens. And because of that, it creates breaks and gaps in traffic where people are able to access Main Street. And by sending these vehicles, if they were trying to access the light further from the school where children cross, we'd actually be
You're
increasing
not
the
sending
safety.
it Further, you're sending them to Walnut. Walnut is a
Correct.
major.
And again, I don't believe anybody's route, if they are exiting that building, will be either Warren if it's open or Walnut if Warren was not. They would head to the intersection of Main
All
and
the cars will
Center.
head there as well.
I'm sorry?
The cars will head there as well.
That's
So the
correct,
cars will
away
head
from the
there
school.
And the children will be there. So I really don't
No,
see
the
I'm not
students won't be at the
very
intersection of
confident
Main
on
and
whether-
Center. So, and then to your next point, as far as the sidewalks on Main and Stevens, I know you had a question about them and the delay. Unfortunately, PSC&G has taken months to get electric to the box that has been installed. Ever since the light pole went up, we've been waiting on PSC&G they did install the meter. Unfortunately, the electricians at PSC&G that install the meter are not the same electricians that actually get power to the meter from the lines. Blows my mind, but that's the process. There's different divisions for every single component of installing that box. So we're waiting for the electric to get from the lines to the meter before the traffic company can come back and fire up the new lights, disable the old ones, at which time the old lights can come down and the concrete can be, poured in that
Would they
area.
be responsible for putting something on top of all the rocks and pebbles that they have? Why can't they put like a metal or a wooden or something that you can even walk across? You can't. even,
So
like,
you can walk there
I'm waiting
now.
For somebody to twist their ankle and fall down.
So yes, and the contractor has been back a number of times at the engineer's request to add additional gravel and to continue to keep it, safe enough that at least pedestrians can traverse it. I'm not saying it's the most ideal, but it meets the engineer's requirements of safety in that intersection. Again, I don't love it. I hate the orange fencing all around it. It's not aesthetically pleasing, but this is one of those hurdles that we just need to get over to get us to the finish line.
So you
And-
have no time frame on that one? You don't know?
It's PSE&G's timeframe. And I have a number of requests through our local liaison to PSE&G. And unfortunately, it has been taking quite some time. The other question that you had,
I have a few, I'm sorry.
no, that's okay. Had to do with things like the farmer's market and the location of it now. In conversations with this council, we are looking to develop an EMS building. The funding for that has been approved, earlier this year, or I should say, last year. And finding the right location for the EMS has been challenging, but something that in conversation with all of these council members, it looks like the ultimate location for it will be the rear corner of the parking lot here at Town Hall, with potentially additional spots being added along Main and Union Ave, so that we don't lose a number of parking spaces here for people to visit us at the municipal building. And I say that to say that the farmer's market will likely need to be relocated in the future, and finding the perfect location for that could be a challenge. And conversations, discussions have been this pedestrian plaza or this area that's closed off in the future
So
as one of the
School One
potential
parking
areas.
lot wouldn't be a good idea?
I'm sorry?
School One's parking lot in the back?
We don't own the School One parking lot.
Okay. If it's part of the township, I thought you could use it.
That's the School Board of Ed. They are an entirely separate governing body. We have nothing to do with their budget. We have nothing to do with their lots, their buildings. They don't come to us when they have a roof leak. They have to repair that themselves. It is entirely on them. Now, that's not to say that we don't have a relationship or partnership with them, but it would certainly be something that, again, we don't have authority to approve, which then leads to the next question of, where could there be parking? And yes, we do have a new lot going in that area. And I'm not saying School One parking lot's not a good option for us in the future. It may very well be. But
What about the two houses you knocked down? Won't that be a parking area as well?
it will, absolutely.
Will we be able to have access and maybe close that off on a Sunday and have the farmer's
We
market?
could, but I can tell you one of the biggest concerns I hear every single day is a lack of parking in our downtown. So removing or eliminating parking in our downtown on a Sunday morning when all of our businesses and diners and eateries are very busy might not be something that we're looking to do, especially bringing in dozens and dozens. And as you heard, 900, almost 1,000 people at the farmer's market this past weekend. Bring that number of people with additional vehicles to that parking lot.
Well, couldn't the overflow go to the civic center where you're, the senior civic center or whatever?
I
Right?
certainly could, again, but that would be, some bit of a walk for them to get there. Again, these are all options. I'm not putting any of them off the table. I'm just, stating that finding another location for it in the future is something that we may very well have to be looking to do. Because again, there might be a building in the location where the current farmer's market occurs. So those are all things that are certainly being considered. Again, I don't think that, I can tell you that the schools certainly support the closure of Warren Street because of the increased safety to pedestrians and especially our students, who again would have one less street to cross when they're running across that area there.
They run across to the library anyway, so that's my concern as well, because that's one of those things that they go directly for. So my concern is they're just going to cut across regardless, because, cocky like eighth graders, because I have one.
Right,
That's a
but at
little-
least they now don't have the option to also cut across Warren Street.
Well, last question, any idea when they're going to be opening the apartments on Main Street that they're just finishing up?
I do not know the timetable on that.
And again, out of like the wheelhouse, the Citizens, has that been 100% rented yet?
I don't believe they're at 100%. I do believe that they are approaching, getting almost completely filled.
It's
But
just
they're not
my
100% yet.
concern that we keep building things and things that we already have aren't being filled. So that's another concern, but we'll circle back because that's not on the agenda. So I think I'm done, right?
Well, we want to address your question about having areas that are owned and not developed. You mentioned that question this evening. The governing body does not have authority to force a developer to build. As long as they keep the property safe, the builder is at their own time frame of when they would like to build.
But
Is-
can't we change that in our bylaws for our town?
Could we change to force a builder to build or a homeowner? I don't know, legal, can we do that? Can we change an ordinance to
Well,
force?
You were forcing my doctor to have his building either, completely renovated or ready for business in 3 years' time
So-
after a fire.
I don't,
I think I can answer that a little bit.
but keep
If
in
you
mind.
don't rebuild a building that has burnt down,
Yeah,
and the zoning in that area does not just
Right.
generally permit that building in that zone, or there's variances that are needed. The variances that they may have had may expire, meaning you would not be able to build that same building in that location without getting variances, which if the town has changed in some way in that area, may not be looked favorably upon, and that building may not be able to be there in the future. So that's why that's why that may have happened there. I don't know all of the facts about it or surrounding that circumstance. What I can certainly tell you is that, there's probably a lot more of that consideration that went into that there.
But we can potentially look into something like that
I don't think so.
within
I-
the township.
we'll have a council review it. We have some buildings in our township, as you know, that have been the same way since I moved in 33 years ago, and they haven't changed. And you would often think, why does a owner or a developer do something with those properties? But that's up to them. As long as they keep them safe, the governing body can't force someone to do something with the property.
And my last question, handicap accessibility to the multiple businesses that are in town. I know that for some it would be difficult and it's, I guess, a money issue. I'd really like to see what the grants that we can kind of get to make ramping, to make it accessible for my son to be able to go into Taco Affair, to be able to go into various, he's lived in this town for over 30 years and he can't enter a lot of the businesses that are in his own town because they're not handicap accessible. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe June is Handicap Awareness Month, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember. But anyway, I think that's it. I've given you enough and you can like chew on it and circle back to me and let me know. I would appreciate it.
Thank you for your comments this evening. Mr. Kuchar, is there anyone in the chat that'd like to speak to us this evening?
It's not.
Is there anyone else that'd like to come before us and speak on any of the agenda items? Please state your name. You don't need to state your address.
Hi, AJ Alvarez.
Good evening.
Evening. I just wanted to, if you can hear me okay, broadly speak in favor of the pedestrian plaza, having not seen any final layouts for it. But also, full disclosure, I am involved with the rehabilitation of Old Town Hall adjacent to it, and my background is in architecture, and to address some comments about the parking and specifically the ADA parking. I'm sure there's a way to create a layout that makes everyone happy, but even if there isn't, I mean, they're called ADA parking spaces because there are certain protections, there are certain criteria that those parking spaces have to meet as far as how far away from the buildings that they're serving they are, what size they are, the ramps that lead to or from them, et cetera. So I do think that closing that portion of Warren Street with a properly designed space will work. I think it's a great idea. Also, for the comments about how we already have some green space in town and parks, et cetera, we do, but there's a difference between the Morris Canal Greenway and Wilmore Park and what this space would be. A pedestrian plaza for where it's located, I think would be fantastic at the intersection of Warren Street and Stevens Avenue.
Thank you for your comments this evening. Does the council have any comments or about the speakers this evening?
Councilman, just a quick question.
Councilman Murphy.
On this ordinance tonight for the pedestrian plaza, I just want to understand the I guess, timeframe and layout of this. So if we do vote yes on this and this does pass tonight, then we would seek to obtain grants on the cost to cover the cost or most of the cost thereof of doing a pedestrian plaza. Then I guess we'd go forward with the design approval. If the council at that point does not like the approval or does not like the design that's sent to us on where the parking spaces will be or the overall design of it, can we at that point shut it down, or what's the
Right.
purpose of that?
So the council's not, even though if you approve this evening, moving forward, and council, correct me if I'm wrong here, but it's not obligated to move forward. If we don't get the grant money, that means that we'd have to find the funds somewhere else, and that may not be what this governing body wants to do. So the project would end up not going forward. If the designs came back and they were not acceptable by this governing body, again, the project would not move forward. Am I correct, Counselor?
Yes, Council President.
Right, so that would be, this is not saying if we pass this tonight, it's definitely a green light to doing the pedestrian plaza. It's more moving forward to see what can be done and how it will be done and where the funds will come from.
To start the beginning. phase of
Correct.
it. Right. Okay. Thank you, Council President.
You're welcome. Are there any other questions or comments?
Just a quick,
Councilwoman Patel?
just generally, is there a reason why we haven't first applied for the grant? Does this ordinance need to be passed in order for us to apply for the grants?
Mr. Crucio, would you like to answer that?
The area needs to be designated before we can apply specifically for it. And it hasn't been, so that you're really designating the area at this point in time.
Okay, thank you. That
Right,
clarifies.
right. It's the way government has to work. We have to go through these passing of the ordinance in order to get the grant. Mr. Vanchery, do you have any comments?
Councilman, I was just gonna say, because I know, Mrs. Cooper had a question about the property on the corner of, Stevens and Main. Yeah, the grass is growing. It looks really nice. And the owner of that property was looking to put a post and rail fence as well, to make it look nicer. In addition to like the beautiful grass that's there. No plans at this point with the property, but at least there'll be a post and rail fence there as well to give it a nice look, and probably some flowers, or so there. And I just think too, with this opportunity tonight that's on the agenda, obviously, like Mr. Cucci had just said, it's rezoning, getting what we need in place, and then of course applying for the grant. There's no guarantees with the grants, but once we do here, we can figure this out, and that's where the engineers will come into play, of course, and designing the appropriate space.
Thank you, Councilman Vanchery. Have a motion to close the public comment?
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Patel, second by Councilman Vanchery. This is a voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All those opposed? The motion carries. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Murphy, second by Councilwoman Hablitz. This is a roll call to approve the consent agenda.
Councilmember Patel?
Yes.
Councilmember Murphy?
Yes.
Councilmember Havlet?
Yes.
Councilmember Vanchery?
Yes.
Council President Scoba.
Yes. So we're going to table ordinance 1493 until our counselor could review this and come back, and we'll see if we could bring this to the next meeting. So table, ordinance 1493 will be tabled. I'm sorry?
We need a motion.
I'm sorry. I need a motion to table. Have a motion to table 1493.
So
So
moved.
moved.
Councilman Patel, second by Councilman Vanchery. Please call the roll to table 1493.
Councilmember Patel?
Yes.
Councilmember Murphy?
Yes.
Councilmember Havlet?
Yes.
Councilmember Vanchery?
Yes. Yes.
Scoba.
Yes. Can I, Madam Clerk, read ordinance 1494?
Second reading and public hearing of ordinance number 1494, an ordinance entitled 2024 Little Falls Salary Ordinance.
Public hearing on 1494 is now open. Does anyone wish to speak on 1494? Mr. Crucia, anyone in our chat room? No one coming before this governing body. The public hearing on 1494 is now closed. Can I have a motion to adopt 1494?
So moved.
Moved by Councilwoman Hablitz,
Second.
second by Councilwoman Patel. Madam Clerk, call the roll to adopt 1494.
Councilmember Patel?
Yes.
Councilmember Murphy?
Yes.
Councilmember Havlet?
Yes.
Councilmember Vanchery?
Yes.
Council President Scoba.
Yes. Brings us to 1495, which is the pedestrian mall. And the governing body has a choice to either table this until the next meeting or to vote on this and proceed to see the plans. We heard from the public, those that were for it. and some residents' concerns about ADA parking. I would ask to table this until the next meeting, until we could see a plan, but I would ask the governing body at that next meeting to be ready to vote on this. So can I have a motion to table it?
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Patel,
Second.
second by Councilman Murphy. Please call the roll to table 1495.
Councilmember Patel?
Yes.
Councilmember Murphy?
Yes.
Councilmember Havlet?
Yes.
Councilmember Vanchery?
Yes.
Council President Scoba.
Yes, Madam Clerk, read ordinance 1496.
Second reading and public hearing of ordinance number 1496, an ordinance entitled, an ordinance amending the code of the Township of Little Falls, Administration of Government, Section 33, Cannabis.
Does the public hearing on ordinance 1496 is now open. Does anyone wish to speak on that? Seeing none, come forward. The public hearing on ordinance 1496 is now closed. Have a motion to adopt 1496.
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Havlet, second by Councilman Murphy. Please call the roll, Madam Clerk, on 1496.
Councilmember Patel?
Yes.
Councilmember Murphy?
Yes.
Councilmember Havlet?
Yes.
Councilmember Vanchery?
Yes.
Council President Scoba.
Yes. Have a motion to open the meeting to the public for general matters.
So moved.
So moved.
By Councilman Patel, second by Councilman Vanchery. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Madam Clerk.
Anyone wishing to address the Township Council may do so through the Council President. It is preferred if you give your name and address for the record. Comments are to be limited to 3 minutes. However, if appropriate, you may be granted additional time in the sole discretion of the Council President. Members of the public who have joined the meeting virtually and desire to provide comment shall raise their virtual hand in the Zoom application. The meeting moderator will cue the members of the public that wish to provide comment, and the Council President will recognize them in order. Members of the public who have joined the meeting by calling in must press *6 to mute and unmute themselves and *9 to raise their hand. Members of the public who have joined the meeting via the Zoom application must click the reactions icon and then the raise hand icon. Once the process is complete, we will return to the regular order of business.
Thank you. Before we proceed, Chief, do you have anything that you'd like to tell the governing body this evening?
I'll be brief, sir.
Thank you.
So I'm happy to report that we completed the distracted driving campaign in April. That was the You Text You Drive. We did receive 100 hours that we were authorized for enforcement. We did use all 100 hours. That resulted in an additional 193 motor vehicle stops. We wrote 102 additional summonses for the month. 39 of those were cell phone violations. So continuing that trend, we did apply and did receive the May Click It or Ticket grant. So we'll be doing an additional 100 hours of enforcement. And that period is running from May 20th to June 2nd. So 2 weeks abbreviated period, but we're looking to exhaust the full 100 hours enforcement. On a community policing front, Council President, I'm sure you'll be hearing more about this, but it's not until September, our community policing officer, Corporal Vanek, will be out. We're looking to do a senior citizen police academy, be 1 day a week, running from September 25th to October 23rd, about 2 hours. And we're going to just start them off with a little department tour, keep it simple. There'll be a canine demonstration. We're going to speak about home security. We're going to talk about how to protect yourselves against fraud, vehicle safety. Our traffic safety division went to specialized training to kind of evaluate how senior citizens drive and work through a period of how far away you sit from the wheel, and are your mirrors set the right way? And do you understand, because cars are more like a computer, and some of our elderly generations a little bit more challenged when it comes to technology. So the officers are specially trained to teach them how to hook up the Bluetooth, so on and so forth. So this is, new and exciting for the department to bring this to the community. We do the Junior Police Academy, so this is just another evolution of that. And we're going to look to target adults 55 and older.
Thank you, Chief. I think that's a very good program, Mayor. I'm glad to hear that program for the seniors. The newer cars, just like computers, if you're not used to using all the gadgets, it becomes a challenge. So I appreciate that. Chief, can you go over the violation when people are talking on their cell phones, like how that triggers a ticket? Because I think a lot of motorists feel, the cell phone. Can you just explain how that works?
Well, I think the biggest misconception is that the public, you have to be using a hands-free device. So you may not necessarily need to have the phone up to your face speaking, just having the device in your hand, texting, putting in GPS coordinates or using Google Maps. Those all constitute a violation. So when we're out doing enforcement, if we see the phone in the hand, legally it constitutes a violation because it needs to be a hands-free device. Throughout my career, I've enforced a lot of cell phone violations. I usually would get I had it on speakerphone, but it can't be in your hand, and that was something that I always, used to argue with the public about. So when we're, out there doing the enforcement, we look, distracted driving doesn't necessarily need to be a cell phone. So you can have a dog on your lap. You can be doing your makeup in the mirror. Anything you're doing that's not paying attention to the roadway can constitute distracted driving. Specifically, hands-free devices. That's more what people think of with the cell phone, but it doesn't necessarily have to be even a cell phone in your hand. It can be anything that's distracting you from the roadway.
Thanks for that clarification. Chief Mayor, you want to add something to that?
Just simply having kids in the car constitute distracted driving.
Only if you're driving like this. I told you to stop arguing, right? So that's, you turn around and you're conversing with your children for a prolonged period of time, then that could be careless driving also.
Chief, also, do you want to talk about another program that might be?
I did. If I had time, Council President.
The floor is yours, Chief.
So June will be Pride Month. I know 2 years ago when I took over the department, I was approached by Lieutenant Gilchrist, who's our LGBTQ coordinator. A program that is very near and dear to her heart, something that she did a lot of research on, is called the Safe Place Program. And we're looking to roll that out in June. So just, if I can, just talk a little bit about the program. We're going to partner with our businesses and our schools, and there will be these decals that the business owners will outward face to the public. And if you are the victim of a hate crime, bullies, student bullying, you can see this sign, whether it be in a school or out in the public, and you can go seek refuge inside the business, and the businesses will be specially trained to kind of shelter, call 911, and coordinate a response from law enforcement. It's not only, LGBTQ community, yes, but it could be a student that's, feels uncomfortable and there's a stranger that they're not familiar with and they happen to be walking by one of these businesses. They can also go in there, receive shelter, and then the business or the workers would call 911 for us. So look more to our social media about the rollout of that program. And I don't mean to steal Detective Lieutenant Gilchrist's thunder, but I know that June 1st will be coming quickly, and this is something that she wanted to get rolled out.
Thank you, Chief, for including the public in the governing body of that program.
If I may, one last update.
Mayor?
So one last update that I'd like to give this evening. The municipality, since long before I was elected, has a .com email address for our website, for all of the individuals that are employed by the town. And it is something that I've always found to be, I don't want to say inappropriate, but not the correct way to run a municipality. I can tell you that we have spent a lot of man hours on getting us to a point where we are looking to get, and I believe we now have finally received approval to move to a .gov domain moving forward. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. There is a lot of background work and IT work that needs to be, put forth before we were able to have the .gov website and email addresses. But it is something that I can tell you there's been a lot of work that's gone into. We will have to change the name of the website from LFNJ moving forward because the .gov registry, which you need to get approval from in order to secure a .gov website and domain, has said that LFNJ is not unique enough because there's Little Ferry. There's other things that could be confused as LFNJ. It's not very particular about what it is that it is referring to. So we are looking to get and secure the full approval for littlefallsnj.gov moving forward. But again, it's something that I've always thought and has always bothered me not having a .gov because the .com just seems less I guess, prestigious and official. I know a lot of other towns have used the .orgs. That's much easier to secure. The .gov has a full federal registry and a whole process that you need to go through in order to secure it. And a lot of thank you to our Assistant Business Administrator, Vince Quattrone, and our Recreation Director, Tyler Passero, who have been working very diligently to move forward with securing this for us. So thank you both for all of the work that you've done. I know I've seen all of the emails, and it has certainly not been a light lift. So thank you for all of that.
Thank you, Mayor. Would anyone like to come up at this point before I close? Have a motion to close the public comment?
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Murphy, second by Councilwoman Hablitz. This is a voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those
Aye.
opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. I know, so we're sorry about that, Speaker. We're doing our best. We'll have to take a look at that. Madam Clerk, Mrs. Kraus, that the proclamation is well deserved for you this evening. I appreciate your professionalism and been working with you since 2016. And I know this actually particular meeting, although it seemed to be short, we worked through the weekend to make sure this governing body would be having an efficient and professional meeting. So thank you for your endeavors and working with me. Have a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So moved.
Moved by Councilwoman Patel.
Second.
Second by Councilwoman Hablitz. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? This meeting is now closed.